Hey guys, Cubehamster here, and welcome to a new episode of the Ultimate SlimeBlock tutorial series. Now you might be wondering, what do you mean, Ultimate SlimeBlock tutorial series? Well, a year ago, and I'm like talking a year ago, I started a series relatively shortly after I released Mega Gargantua that went into explaining the mechanics used in most of my SlimeBlock creations. And try and teach people, how you can build your own stuff. And we've spoken about a couple different things. We've talked about like engines and how you can attach things to engines. We've spoken about sequential piston mechanics, so like how you can get these slime blocks to do a sequence of piston extensions in a certain order, which is something you need in order to get, robot legs going, for instance. But you can also come up with other stuff. And in the last episode, and this was a year ago, we also talked about movable wiring and movable buttons. So like how you can actually have a movable trigger mechanism. Like all my robots use flint and steel for activation and stuff like that. And how you can actually send a signal with slime blocks to a piston somewhere at the back of your machine or somewhere at the front of your machine. Now, today what I want to talk about is start-stop engines. And these start-stop engines, is a thing that I've been using for a very long time. I don't know what happened here. And yeah, I kind of want to go into details. So I have 5 different engines now. As you can see, the speeds vary. And it's not so much about the engines themselves, but what I more want to talk about is like what makes them work, and explain how you can come up with your own engines and like the core mechanics behind them. So let's try and stop this one. This one's pretty difficult to stop, actually. There we go. This one's very easy to stop. And let's see if we can get this one to stop. There we go. And this is one that I released a while ago, and this is one that I really like, but it's probably like one of the one of the bigger ones. And the timing is a little bit annoying, but the slower, basically the slower these engines are, the easier they are to stop. So this one's super slow and relatively easy to stop. But yeah, so I'll be going into start-stop engines in this episode, but like this series is kind of like built, like each episode adds something new. So if you've not watched the previous episodes, I actually kind of recommend you tune out of this one and watch from the start, because I'll be talking about a lot of mechanics that we've already talked about. Like I'll be adding on to a lot of mechanics that we already talked about in the previous episodes. But yeah, if you've seen those, then yeah, follow me and I'll show you some interesting stuff. Okay, before we start, I would actually like to take a moment and talk about, what is, I think, the core mechanic of all these engines. And it kind of has to do with something we talked about in the previous episode as well, but I want to just like point it out again. But basically, all these engines, they use essentially block update detectors. So this is a block update detector. And the one thing that's super important about these block update detectors is that when they trigger a sticky piston, they extend it obviously, but the extension that the piston gets actually a 1-tick pulse, which means that whenever this triggers, instead of moving the block back and forward, what you would expect from a sticky piston, it actually leaves the block behind. And it doesn't really matter like where along the thing receives the signal. This thing will always, give off a 1-tick pulse. So I'm just, putting some stuff like this. But if you look at the blocks, you see they get pushed away and they leave the block behind. That's like super important for all the engines. Another thing that's very important is to know that whenever you push one of these block update detectors, like you basically push it backwards, it doesn't update. That's the second important mechanic that's used in all these engines. So essentially what you have here is you have a movable button that you will use to trigger the engine. And the triggering of the engine will have to do with the fact that we can, if we want to, leave a block behind whenever we decide to trigger the movable button. Now, with that in the back of our head, I want to start talking about the first engine, which is the engine that is on the submarine that Alex Yu made recently. It's very compact. It is unbreakable. You can't mess it up. And it is relatively fast as well. Now, you might not always want it to be super fast though, and that's why I'll be talking about different engines as well. But this is a very good start. So the foundation of the engine that is on the submarine is essentially this, and this is basically just an engine similar to the one that's on most of my missiles. The Juggernaut has a similar engine to this one, so it's a Tomahawk missile. But this is just a simple flying machine, right? Now, the cool thing about this thing is that what we talked about a moment ago, that you can actually, push forward a movable button, that still applies. So if I were to, basically make a movable trigger mechanism, this would already be pushed forward. The problem though is the way we set it up right now. Triggering this thing will break the whole machine. So what we have to do is we basically want it so that this piston is pushing forward the segment, but we don't want the block in front of it to be a sticky piston, because if it were, and I were to trigger my my trigger mechanism, the SlimeBlock will actually grab the piston and move it back like this, and then update the engine, which would be super annoying. Like, it will basically mess up everything. So in order to avoid that, what we'll do is we'll actually place a non-sticky block here, and we'll still have the redstone block here because we want this piston to extend whenever it moves forward. But what we can do is we can actually have two slime blocks here, so that this quartz block pushes the slime block, which pushes this slime block as well because they're attached, and will pull this redstone block along. So this thing at the moment still functions as the good old engine that we already had. So let me just quickly reset this. So we have this now, and now all we need is the basically the block update system, which is just a diagonally powered sticky piston. And with this, we've now created our super simple start-stop engine. In order to start it, you have to click it twice. And what's kind of cool is, this is what we talked about earlier. When I click it the first time, you see the mechanic that I talked about earlier. I one-tick pulse this slime block, which then pushes these 4 blocks away and leaves them behind. Now, on the second time I trigger this, just as before, these 4 blocks get pulled in. But seeing as there's now a piston on the back, this will actually get pulled in and then activated and start the engine again. So the first click pushes it back, and then the second click starts it up again. And when you stop it, what you're essentially doing is you're also like pulsing the the piston for a short moment. And the timing is a little bit weird. You have to kind of wait a little bit long, like towards the end, just before it's about to push again. That stops it. So it's a 1-click stop, and then it's a 2-click to start it up again. And while this engine is like, it's amazing, it's super compact, it's unbreakable, there's one issue with it, and that is that this one has a fixed speed. And seeing as the piston down here actually updates the sticky piston above, there's not really any way you can slow this engine down the way it's set up now. But there's something we can change about that though. So what we can do to actually, you know, alter the speed of this engine, because you know sometimes you don't want your flying machine to be super fast because you have lags and shit that you're trying to activate. Is what we need to do is move this piston out of the way. This piston is the thing that's actually, you know, triggering the caterpillar above to take the next step. Every time this piston extends, it updates this piston, which pulls in this one and gets pushed forward, etc. So what we actually want to do is we want to move the piston here, and we'll actually put a slime block there, just so it's part of that segment. And what we'll do now is we'll do the same thing that we had before, where we have, you know, a normal block, and we will also have the like double blocks here. We still need a redstone block here for the trigger mechanism, because we want, whenever the button is pressed, to one tick pulse this sticky piston. So now we just need, you know, what we kind of had before. Let's place that one later. So now we have the same movable button, and we're pushing it. This does not get stuck. There's no sticky piston here, and we're still updating this. And that essentially means that we've now separated this caterpillar from the start-stop mechanism. So this still does the whole like double trigger thing. And as you can see, when you trigger it twice, it will actually move the machine forward. But the main reason we did this was so that we can, you know, we can now basically do whatever we want with this engine. And this is something we talked about in episode 1 of the Ultimate Slime Stone tutorial series. But yeah, essentially what we can do now is we can just add delay. And you can do that whatever way you want to do that. I'm just doing it like this now. But we can add delay and then have, you know, a block here that updates this this caterpillar again. So what we get now is a very, very slow engine. And as you can see, this caterpillar updates this caterpillar, updates this caterpillar, and then the one on the outside is basically the one that updates this one by moving the block out of the way. That also causes a block update. And if we want to stop it, it's, you know, similar to before. One click, and then we can actually kind of get it going again. It's a little bit. It's super easy to stop it now. And what's kind of good about this is we don't have to do 2 clicks in order to start it up again, because we have so much time to one tick pulse this piston without breaking anything. But yeah, as you can see, like I've done the engine like this now, but you can alter the way this looks just by having a, you know, different way of adding delays. You can probably, if you spend some time, you can probably make this engine look really, really nice. But it's not something I'm going to do now. I just want to show you like the core mechanics. But this is a very like easy to manipulate engine. Probably the easiest one out there. And now we're going to talk about a little bit more complicated ones. Okay, the next engine, or the next start-stop mechanism I want to talk about is has a different principle than the one we just talked about, and this is what I personally have been constantly using for all my start-stop engines. But the basic principle is that pistons can only push segments of up to 12 blocks. When you have a segment of slime blocks with stuff attached to it and it reaches, you know, 13 blocks or more, the piston will just refuse to extend. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a very, very old school simple engine, one that we talked about in episode 1. Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I'm just gonna bring this back. I don't know how far I'm gonna bring this back. We'll see. See how it goes. And like what I'm doing now, this is essentially the engine that's on Gargantua, sort of. Not exactly, but like the principles. We don't have any caterpillars. I only have pistons pushing forward. And that is perfectly fine for what I wanted to do. But yeah, the idea is, we talked about this before, it's an engine where all the pistons have an air gap in front of it, except for one. And by doing that, you basically create a, I forgot to put a redstone block here. By doing that, you actually, it's maybe a little bit hard to see, but there's always one piston pushing. The cool thing is though, this piston at the front is pushing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 blocks, which means that whenever I add block number 13, this piston at the front will be like, nope, I've had enough. So what we want to do now is we want to abuse this system and make it so that we can kind of like start and stop the engine. And the way I'm going to do this, I already placed the piston down here. But what you can essentially do is I can obviously attach, something that pushes something forward here. So let's actually do that. But the kind of like cool thing about this is that if I have, a sticky piston here, and this is a mechanic that you can always use whenever you want. I'm going to be powering this piston not diagonally, but I'll be powering it 2 blocks above. Like you can also, let's make it so I can actually show this. Whenever a redstone block is 2 blocks above a piston, you can also like power it by giving an update. So that's what I'm doing here. When this pushes forward, this will push forward. But what I have here now is that there's a sticky piston here, and whenever this thing gets pushed forward, this block will stay behind because it's not stuck, but it will run into the redstone block, which will activate it, and the redstone block will be shortly after that be pushed away by this piston, causing this to retract again. So what you basically have now is you have a sticky piston that's constantly pulling this block back. Now, why is this important? Well, if I just stop this for a sec, and then power this again, this thing up front could technically be a movable switch, because I can turn this into a block update detector that's facing backwards, which means that I essentially now can choose if I want to, whenever I trigger this, what it will do is it will one tick forward the block, leaving the block in front of the piston that's pushing. This is what we talked about at the start of the video, which makes this go to the 13 block push, like over the 13 block push limit. The thing is though, like this is cool and all, but at the moment this does not start up the engine. And yeah, the next thing we need to do is we need to figure out a way of, whenever I trigger this, not only do I want to move this block out of the way, making this go back to the 12 block push limit, but at the same time, when I push this block away, I want a block to update this sticky piston. And the way we do that is just by simply moving a block onto this. That would be perfect. So what we're going to do now is, instead of just pulling a quartz block, what we're going to do is we are going to actually move this a little bit forward, 1 block forward, and we won't just be pushing or pulling like 1 block. We can pull an entire segment of blocks if we wanted to. Like this would already essentially get pulled back. What we can do is we can actually make this segment have, you know, a block near the piston that needs to be updated in order to get the engine going again. And by doing that, we've now essentially created this very big, but it's very, you know, reliable, a very nice start-stop mechanism. So you can see this thing, you know, it never gets attached to the SlimeBlock, and whenever I stop it, I make this piston go heavily over the push limit. I did actually mess it up now. Whoops. So let's try it again. Can I do this? Maybe. Come on. There we go. It is a little bit of a timing thing. You have to do it shortly after. But yeah, I hope you kind of like understand the core principle behind this engine, because this is actually the principle that we'll be using in the next engine. And the next engine I want to talk about is the one that I have on the Strider. It is the engine that I have on the Colossus, and it's also the engine that I've released like a sort of semi-compact version of recently. It's a little bit more complex, and it's definitely, like, comparing it to the engines we talked about earlier. It's a lot harder to see what's going on, but it essentially functions on the same principles as this engine. Okay, now the last engine I would like to talk about is the one that I'm like using, or the principle behind the last engine is similar to what I'm using on Colossus and like the Strider robot, and the principle is very closely related to the one that we just made. So like it relies on, again, a piston that's going to go over the 12 block push limit. The only difference now though is what we'll have is we will actually have the so we have a piston, but the block that we'll be removing to make it go to, you know, 13 block segments and 12, so over the push limit and not over the push limit, is actually already above the piston. So that when you remove this block, not only do you make it go back to the 12, like just below the limit, but removing the block also causes a block update because the state of the block above it changes. And the way I'm going to do that, like, I'm not going to build the exact same engine that I have over there. I'm going to make it sort of like improvised one, just so I can better explain what's going on. But the core mechanics are essentially the same. But the idea is we have a sticky piston here, and basically the idea is now it's below the push limit, and if we do this, it's above the push limit. And I'm like one tick pulsing them now by quickly placing and removing the redstone block, but the idea is that we obviously do that with some sort of trigger mechanism. So let's make a trigger mechanism, and I'm probably gonna make this, I don't know, let's see how we'll make this. Let's not do that, that's not a good idea. Let's see, we obviously need a block update detector, and I think I'm gonna use basically a block update detector similar to the one that we had on one of the previous engines. So like this, and then we'll place a redstone block here. So now whenever this piston gets updated, it will move this redstone block right next to this piston, which will cause this block together with the slime block to extend. And when I press it again, it will stop. So this is stopping it, and this is starting it. Now, what is tricky about this though is that it's very important that both the trigger and the piston move at the same time. If they don't move at the same time, say the piston moves before this like redstone block gets pushed out of the way, then you end up with an extended piston, which we don't want. So I want to say now already, like, we probably need like a piston here as well, and we also probably like 100% need a. We basically need to move this segment at the same time. Now, as for the 12 block push stuff, so now it's kind of a question for like, we basically need to make it so that this piston is just pushing 12. So let's actually figure out how to hook these up. I was thinking of just using a caterpillar. Like, this engine is not going to be super fast or anything like that. Let's see how we're going to do this. This is a little bit of like tinkering on the spot right now, but I hope I can kind of explain what's going on. That would be the ultimate goal. But yeah, I'm making a caterpillar, and I have to make sure that by doing so, I don't go over the push limit, basically. So let's check how much we are actually. How much do we have right now? So I need something like this. I guess I can text. No, let's go with something like this. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7. I actually have to count this one as well already. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so I think this will do for the mechanism that pushes forward the trigger. So let's quickly just test this. Like, this piston is going to stay behind, but hopefully these two things will move at the same time. Okay, so we have that now. Now let's count how many blocks is the piston at the front pushing right now, because we need to bring that up to 12 and 13, depending on if this quartz block is there. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have 4 more blocks now, which is pretty nice, because I actually like the actual engine that's circling will be at the bottom, and I still need blocks in order to get that engine going. So if I place some blocks here now, so again 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's one too many. Okay, so let's do it like this. Okay. So now we're at 13, including this block. I should not have done that. Oops. So let's trigger this back. There we go. So now it doesn't work. Let's weather clear for a moment. So now down here, what I basically want is just some caterpillars to slow it down. Like, this engine is not going to be compact in any shape or form. I guess this thing's in the way, so let's quickly move that out of the way so it does not cause block updates down here. Like, what I'm doing now, it seems complicated, but it is a puzzle, and it might actually be a little bit complicated, but the more you mess around with this sort of stuff, the easier it becomes. So I don't hesitate away from it. Just try and mess around with it, and you'll make a lot of mistakes, but you'll figure it out eventually. So caterpillar hooked up to, I don't know, another caterpillar. Again, I'm not trying to make this compact. Don't really care if it looks good either. So let's quickly, I don't know, something like this would be fine. This thing looks pretty big, but I think it should work. So now, like, basically what I needed this piston. I needed something to push this piston back into place after it does a cycle. So that's actually what we have now. So now by removing the block, I cause a block update and make it go under the 12 block push limit, so 12, and there you go. This thing will start going. And whenever this is pushed forward now, I have an opportunity to make it go to 13. As long as I push this block forward before this piston gets pushed into the position where the engine will go into the next cycle, this thing will, never break. But it is kind of a bit of a timing thing. I'm not sure. Don't want to try it, but I'm pretty sure that if you don't do the timing properly, there's a chance that this one actually messes up. But I think the core mechanic of this thing is really good, and also think that like the more you slow down this engine, the more reliable it becomes, and especially for very big robots and stuff like that. What I like about this one is that whenever you trigger it, it just instantly stops. It just completely goes to a halt. But yeah, that was the last engine I wanted to talk about. I recommend just messing around with this sort of stuff as much as you can. It's actually quite fun. It is literally like one puzzle after the other if you keep doing this sort of stuff. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did and you find this helpful, be sure to leave a like on the video, and if you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe. And I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons who have been supporting me. You can see some of their names on the end slide. If you're interested in supporting me as well, you check out the Patreon page, get cool perks, and get your name at the end of my videos as well. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. I will see you all later. Bye bye.